Like, oh my god. Yes. Yes. Yes, yes. So good. You need to read this book. You want to get it. You want to get it. You need to read the book. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. This is a new channel about Asperger's and Asperger's. This is a new channel about Asperger syndrome and neurodiversity. We'll not only be explaining the meaning of things, but we will also be explaining a lot of stuff in a very interactive and fun way. We'll be introducing a lot of sketches, storytelling, a lot of true stories. Very fun, interesting stories. I tell them. Today we'll be talking about what is Asperger syndrome, and I will be explaining my point of view, my perspective, my concept, my idea of what Asperger syndrome really is from my point of view. But I will be going along with chapter 1 of this very interesting book that I really recommend reading, which is The Complete Guide to Asperger Syndrome by Tony Atwood. And it's a really good book. I really recommend. I have the Kindle version, and I also have the, well, I think this one comes with the audiobook as well. But anyways, chapter 1, which goes very into detail about what is Asperger syndrome, and it starts with a quote saying by Hans Asperger saying, "Not everything that steps out of line and does abnormal must necessarily be inferior." Hans Asperger's, 1938. At the beginning of this chapter, it narrates a very cute story about common interaction with a typical boy. By the way, I will be using the term Asperger's a lot because it's just the most popular term, and to me it's a term that I prefer versus autism, which we'll get into that with throughout this channel. You will understand why. But also because I have immense respect for Hans Asperger's and all his amazing dedication and work that he has to this topic. And thanks to him is that we now know that we're not just a bunch of weirdos, huh, Snowy? We're not just a bunch of weirdos, we are just different. We are wired different. I will also be explaining more into detail about my disagreement with the DSM-5. It'll be in a different segment. I believe it's going to be under my Aspie theories or something like that. Okay, anyways, it starts with a very cute story about a little boy, and it gives you gives a very more vivid picture about the topic and about how, you know, your typical boy with, you know, Asperger's, typical with Asperger's would, how they are, how they think, and how they interact. So it just has a little very cute, clever picture. So it starts with that. Obviously I'm going to paint my own picture in this channel. Pretty much it starts by pointing out the following characteristics, right? Lack of social understanding, limited ability of having reciprocal conversations, and an intense interest in particular subjects, which are the core features of this syndrome. And then there are also quotes. "Perhaps the simplest way to understand AS is to think of as describing someone who perceives and thinks about the world differently to other people." What happened? What happened? That's pretty much what I think Asperger's is. I believe that we definitely, how do I make this short? I just feel like we're a different type of brain. We're just how some people right with the right, and some people are lefties. It's the same. It's just, you know, there's nothing wrong or off with them. They're just wired a little differently. They think with the other side of their hemisphere. So the same goes on with Asperger's. We're just, and I feel like that neurodiversity is just a different type of brain. We're wired differently, so we can, you know, I think nature alone did that on purpose, so that there's different minds and different ways of coming up to a solution. That's why we have all these different inventions and how the world has progressed to the point where it is. Because if everybody thought exactly the same, then I don't think it wouldn't be as fun. So we need diversity, huh, Snowy? Just how there's all these different types of creatures and animals and all these different types of dogs. Same with humans, huh? The unusual profile of abilities that we define as AS has probably been an important and valuable characteristic of our species throughout evolution. It was not until the late 20th century that we actually had a name for it. The next part talks about how Hans Asperger's, who was a pediatric, not even a psychologist, who was the one to notice how a particular group of his patients had similar and unusual personality and behavioral traits that he found intriguing. Around this time, the child psychology was becoming more recognized and a growing area, right? So, but it was Asperger's who actually noticed this, who called it. Okay, so I'm gonna give a little bit of history about who Hans Asperger's was. For those who don't know, he was an actual doctor. He was a pediatrician that just checked kids for physicals and the common cold or whatever have to do with children's health. And so nothing to do with psychology, right? But this is the thing. He just, I guess, had a sense for it, a natural understanding of how people are supposed to behave and behavioral stuff. He noticed that this particular group of children that will come to his office, there was a particular, from let's say 100 patients that he had, for example, that was like, I don't know, a few of them, like, I think it was about 10. You might have had more patients than 100, but for what I remember, I think it was about 10 of them that had these particular behavior that he noticed, like, this kid has these characteristics in common with this other kid, and this other kid has all these characteristics in common with this other kid, and all these kind of have these, I don't think all of them had the exact characteristics, but it was pretty much all of them had like the same characteristics. And he just started kind of like getting really intrigued into it. So that's how it started. And before I jump ahead of myself, I couldn't fit this particular group into other types of groups, like, you know, I don't know, troublemakers or whatever other conditions there are. Kind of thought this is a particular type of personality traits that this group have in common. So he couldn't pretty much classify it. He couldn't give it a name or explanation, so he started studying them and suspected that it was related to autism and gave it the name of autistic personality disorder. Now we're going to talk about a different video about why he thought it was related, it was derived from autism. So, which means that it is the technical way of describing someone's personality type rather than calling it an illness. Although I don't really love the term disorder. That's one thing I don't agree with, but we'll get more into, not that I disagree with his studies, because he did a lot for one person studying this. I don't believe I have a disorder, although it comes, not that I'm arguing any of Asperger's studies. I think he did an amazing job, considering that it wasn't even his realm to be studying in the first place, but he did it, you know, and he pretty much changed the world he changed the whole psychology, you know, studies, and his contribution brought a lot of good, and definitely changed my world. That's for sure. And I know I don't speak for myself when I say this, because I know a lot of people who found they had this as an adult, like, really changed the life for the better completely. And I'm actually really passionate myself when I read this book, like, oh my god, I get so excited just talking about the subject alone. This is my favorite topic to talk about. Like, I annoy people talking about the subject, so every time I'm like I'll be listening to a book, I'll be like, oh my god, yes, I knew it. So good. You need to read this book. You need to read. You want to get it. You need to read the book. It is my favorite topic. It's so interesting, and everything in the book is amazing. It really gives you a much clearer understanding, and it's definitely like knowing about something will really change the way you see things, the way you look. I used to, you know, now that I know like a lot. I'm not saying I know everything, but I have really, really good knowledge about what Asperger's syndrome is, and compared to my own research on my own life, like studying my own life alone, my own experiences, I can really now think about people in my past, and I'm like, maybe I really think this person probably was Asperger's too. That's why this person was like this, you know. And sometimes it's so subtle, the behavior of certain people, because most of us don't. It all depends on different factors. The factors like environmental and also culture plays a big factor on how people behave. So right now, a lot of the studies, they have a prototype of what the Asperger's person, most of the studies have a prototype of what the Asperger's person should behave, but it's really not exactly like that. It's now, thanks to YouTube, there's a whole community out there, and there's so many people that's like, you will never, unless you really know what Asperger's syndrome is, you will never be able to, you know, really be able to tell. And to this day, like, I can suspect somebody is, but I will have to live with them, you know, follow them around, hang out around them for a bit of time, at least a month or so, to be able to, you start seeing the, you know, like, he does a lot of this and he does a lot of that and says this and says that and does this. So it's very complicated. And this is the thing, I don't think it's a disorder at all. Like, I just think it's a different type of brain. A disorder will be more like, you know, people who are legit autistic, like full-blown autistic, to the point where, like, you know, they can communicate or perform regular tasks like, you know, work or learn on their own, and they need special, that's a disorder, because, or a condition. Like, I don't like the term condition, syndrome, disorder, none of that. I'm completely against that classification. And this is why, because I have never needed any help whatsoever from anyone. I hated having special treatment from school or being seen as the, you know, as the slow one or the stupid one, because I was perfectly capable of learning enough and passing tests and having good grades. Did I learn differently at a different pace than others? Yeah, maybe. Yes, but that never stopped me from learning. I still got the stuff. I was still able to do things even better than a lot of my peers. I'm not saying that I'm a better person than a neurotypical. I'm not saying that, I'm also not saying that I'm less better than the neurotypical. I don't like to be compared to anything, but I'm saying that I'm just not a slower or more retarded than a neurotypical. Like, I am just as good or maybe even better. And I think anyone in the spectrum, I met people on all types of different types of people that I consider Asperger's. And I have seen people that, oh my God, they can be very, very difficult and very hard to deal with and to just make them understand certain things, because they can be very close-minded, very single-minded. And at the end of the day, it's up to one. But I have also met neurotypicals that are the same, that are very close-minded, very, you know, just, no, this is what it is, and da-da-da. And at the end of the day, it's up to one. You want to be open-minded, and you want to learn, and you want to take advice, and you want to, you know, change certain behaviors that are not helping you to get to your goals. It's up to you, and it has absolutely nothing to do with what type of brain you have, whether it's neurotypical or Asperger's or whatever. And it is speculated that a lot of the people with our geniuses, they think that are Asperger's, because for what I know, most of them, if not all of them, but definitely most of them can be very, very ridiculously smart geniuses, and they have a bit of a awkward social behavior, or they just kind of have, or they can be extremely awkward and extremely eccentric. Can be extremely eccentric and OCD, and they very particular. And at the end, that's just up to the person's personality. It has nothing to do with like, oh, I'm Asperger's because I'm Asperger's. I am forced. I am this way. It makes me be like this. Like, no. I mean, yes and no, but we'll get more into that throughout this channel, because I have a lot of material and examples to cover, and you will not be sorry. But let's just leave it at that for now. let's continue with the chapter. So pretty much, I believe that there's so many misconceptions regarding Asperger's because the studies are not being done on random samples, I believe. And I believe that this is due to the protocols and regulations that can really set obstacles, restrictions, it's just factors that get on the way of getting just getting the right results. I think that most of for what I have researched, most of the studies that are done on the behavior of people with Asperger's and autism are done on people that fit that protocol. I mean, fit that prototype, right? So, and that been like officially diagnosed. And that's another topic. Like getting diagnosed with this is extremely hard, and it's even harder now thanks to DSM-5. So, it's kind of like being really biased because this is it's not like anything else that can be studied. This is a very, very hard thing to study because you need to study something. You need to get a random sample, and to get a random sample, you mainly need to like be the one that picks who needs to be studied, and they cannot say yes or no, or maybe they could say no, but you will still be able to be like, I'm going to Walmart and I'm just kind of like go ahead and interview everyone, and then whoever has these characteristics, I'm going to pick them, and then I'm going to pick a big size, and then see, chances are that if we offer them sensitive, they're going to allow us to study them. And that will probably be as much as you can like really let people pick. But technically, in order to study something, you can't really give the subject the option to say, I want to be studied, or because people who are actually wanting to come forward, be like, hey, I want to be studied, kills the fact that it's not exactly random, because it wasn't selected. They selected themselves. They came and volunteered to be studied, versus me just, if I want to study pigs, I go to a farm and I just pick random pigs, or I just start studying all the pigs first and be like, okay, this one fits the criteria, this one fits the criteria. Like for example, when I was in school, they wanted to make the school choir, and this is a bad example. Okay, so my point is that one very important thing I'm reading my notes. One very important thing to mention is that Asperger's was pretty much the perfect person to study this because he got a random sample. First, he was a regular doctor, and who goes to the doctor? Everyone. Everyone goes to the doctor. Well, not everyone, but most people. Like, there's not certain type of go to the doctor. For the most part, most people, because everybody gets sick. So it's already a random sample of people, of the average person. So he was able to observe a random sample of an entire population, or at least from his city, which really helped to come to the discovery of Asperger's. The best part is that all of his elected patients, all of them accepted to be observed and studied. This is literally the only way to study a case like ASD. A better sample would have been to get patients from all over the world, or get 10 of him, 10 of exactly his level of, genius of understanding, and doing the study in different countries and comparing notes, right? That if more regular doctors were to take some extracurricular activities on the side and start studying, their own patients that would stand up to them, just like with Hans, it will give us a bigger grasp at the entire, Asperger's community. It will give us more real information and more knowledge to people, to really be able to, for everyone to understand what it is, pretty much. The other issue is that most of the studies have been done on kids, and mainly boys. That's another one, that most studies have been done on boys, based on what I have researched. Studying adults and females is a lot more complicated. So, this is why I'm making this, because I'm gonna give full visual of what it is to be an adult female with Asperger's. And there's a lot of ground to cover. There's a lot of struggles that come with being a kid with Asperger's. No big deal whatsoever. Didn't even really bother me much, other than what just got bad when a teenage once I was a teenager. One little kid, little bully here and there, but it was never something that if anything, my childhood was the best time of my life, to be honest. So I can't really complain saying that Asperger's was so hard on me as a child and da-da-da. Like, no. Being as an adult was the hardest. Teenager, adulthood was when it really hits you. What I really admire about Hans, I want to say Hans to, double confusion. He was really entranced, and, meaning that he was really into these kids, into really, studying them and seeing, their characteristics and how they were. He really admired people in the spectrum, pretty much. And he just really enjoyed studying them and finding the reason for their behavior. I mean, I'm talking about, he literally dedicated 30 years of his life to study these people. Like, that's a lot of commitment. Like, marriages don't last that long. So I really wish there was more people like Hans Asperger that really were that passionate about something, and he could pretty much change the world for a lot of people, pretty much. And I'm sure this is gonna grow, and it's gonna get better and better to understanding where we can all live in this world as one, and be understanding that not everyone is supposed to act a certain way. Everyone is different, and just learn to appreciate each other's differences, right? Like, I don't get bothered by the neurotypicals. Why should the neurotypicals be bothered by me? Now, there is debate in that, whether there's things that people with, Asperger's do that can be annoying to anyone, not just the neurotypicals. Like, I have, know people or have friends that are Asperger's, and I can see them doing those things. It's just kind of like, that's just, you need to know how to be able to live in an environment with other people. And if something that you do bothers other people, then you should be considerate and conscious of that. That's another topic. Also, I will make a video once I collect enough information regarding why I believe studying adults in females is way more complicated for this branch of study. So, with no more ado, I will be explaining in detail every one of the 10 main observations that Hans Asperger's originally made that was the main characteristics of people in the spectrum. Hey, so in order for me to not make this video like super long, I'm cutting it into a few pieces just so you guys have the choice to, want to keep watching right now or later. There's going to be a couple of follow-up segments to this video to finish up the topic. I know there's a lot to cover. I'm going to try not to make all my videos super long, but at the same time, it's kind of like one of the introduction. The first videos that I'm doing is introduction, so it was really important to kind of like cover a little bit of everything, keep you guys like, knowing what other stuff are coming up. And if you're into neurodiversity and Asperger's, you really want to check out my channel, because I've been working on material for this channel for years, and I have like a list of a lot of stuff that I'm gonna be bringing to the table. Just one of the lists, and I have this other list over here. Tons of material to bring, and it's gonna be a lot of funny stuff. So you really want to keep on the loop, and please check out the next part of this video. See you on the next one.